What up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about the seeming total reliance on current set values to predict future prices of sets. I feel like I've been seeing that almost every single YouTube recommendation of a Pokemon investing video. Seems to be different people talking about how looking at current values of sets, like which is pretty much when you combine every card in the set, and then using that to determine whether it's a good investment long term. And I'm going to show that yes, that's part of the equation, but not all of the equation, as I feel like a lot of channels are pointing out. And I feel like there's a lot of nuance that's not being captured, and I want everyone to take everything into account when deciding how to spend their money, right? Hey guys, future me coming in, pulling a Dialga on you, just to tell you to subscribe if you haven't already. Let's try to hit 1,000 subscribers at some point sooner than later. That would be amazing. I forgot to ask, so yeah, apologize for the interruption, but if you haven't and you like Pokemon investing talk, just hit that subscribe button. That's what we do here. Back to the video. First off, shout out to Pika Pika Papa. He's very good with numbers. What I like about his content is he looks at historical trends, right? A lot of people are just looking at what's happening today. He actually looks at historical trends, and you can get a better sense of everything by doing so. And this video specifically is one of my favorites that he does. He pretty much looks at the year, what moved for different things. In this case, it's Sword and Shield. And then he pretty much paused it here at January 14th. What were the big chase cards valued at, right? And then we can see how they performed. And I have even more up to date because this video came out over a month ago. So I have even more up to date, more information about how these cards have performed since then. But shout out to him. Check him out. I think he's honestly one of the best Pokemon investing YouTubers you could check out right now for numbers, historical trends, actually having a nuanced view of things rather than just looking at what's happening currently in the market and acting off of that. So we're going to look at this Gengar and Blaziken specifically, right? So the Blaziken was 163 back January 14th, 2024. Right now, it's 329, right? That's pretty much doubling for the Blaziken. Then there's the Gengar. Gengar significantly more than 3x'd in this scenario, right? So those are big differences. And the question is, why was there such a big disparity between the Blaziken and how much it went up in price, even though they were close to around the same price here, right? Not that crazy, $50 difference. And that turned into almost $400 difference. So why the huge discrepancy there? If you were going off of current set value at the time, you would have invested way more into Chilling Reign than Fusion Strike. Fusion Strike now has more set value, right? And the difference is perhaps you could have predicted if you didn't just look at set value. Look at these 5 Pokemon. You have Blaziken leading the way. You have Galarian Moltres. You have Shadow Rider Calyrex, a gold card, and Zorora V, right? Compare that to the popularity of these Pokemon. Gengar VMAX, right? Gengar. With Blaziken, Gengar is going to win. Espeon with Galarian Moltres, not even Moltres, Galarian Moltres, Espeon's going to win, right? Mew with a gold card and Shadow Rider Calyrex. And then Celebi with Zorora, right? I think you could have predicted, if you weren't hung up on the current value of the set, you could have potentially predicted that Fusion Strike would end up being the better set, or at least the more expensive set with the more expensive cards, and that these cards would have grown disproportionately to the other cards in value if you took more into account than just current set value, right? So we're going to be applying that to a more current example just to show you guys how we could apply this today and how you could use it to get a sense of what's to come in the future, and not just looking at current set value and thinking all the current set values will increase double at the same time, and so they'll never change in proportion to one another. Clearly, set values will rise and go down disproportionately depending on what Pokemon cards are in there and how they do over the long term. So here we're just going to be comparing Temporal Forces to Obsidian Flames. So right now, Temporal Forces, total set value 853, Obsidian Flames 350, right? So clearly it looks like Temporal Forces is the better buy. But let's look more into it. Let's take a more nuanced look into it. And by the way, I think if you invest in either one of these sets, you're going to do fine long term, right? Just want to say, I'm not saying one's going to go down in value. I think long term, both of these and pretty much every set in Scarlet and Violet is a good investment. I think they'll all go up in value, but I just want to explore some things I don't feel like are being explored really in the YouTube investing community. So here we have Obsidian Flames booster box. I was saying while this was worth less than the Temporal Forces booster box, that I preferred Obsidian Flames. Why? Because it has way more fan favorite Pokemon. Also, in addition to that, Obsidian Flames, I actually purchased a case of this. I did not of Temporal Forces. I told you guys I wouldn't purchase Temporal Forces. So here we have 159 current value, even though when I was telling you guys to, that I preferred Obsidian Flames, Temporal Forces was actually more expensive. Now, people were still saying invest in Temporal Forces. Now, for the time being, obviously these can fluctuate. Temporal Forces may come in the lead. We're talking long term, but Temporal Forces may come in the lead again at some point. But Obsidian Flames is 174 now. So currently, it's above Temporal Forces, and obviously you still have people saying, okay, now it's really a good time to get Temporal Forces because Obsidian Flames, which they were saying is a bad investment at a previous price point, is even worse investment now, right? Because it went up. But if you look at it, there's a reason it's been going up. And we're going to take a look at some of the top chase cards in both sets. We're going to look at the top 5 specifically and the value of them and how they've performed over the last 6 months. So here you have Raging Bolt, right? Nothing against Raging Bolt. I do think it's better than Iron Crown. But in 5-10 years, will people care about chasing Raging Bolt? Well, let's see how they did in 6 months, right? And both of these sets are significantly older than 6 months. So they had time to sort of mature before that 6-month period started. And then there's another 6 months of data to look at. Now, Obsidian Flames is older, so just keep that in mind. So Raging Bolt, 98 currently, went up 20.5% in the last 6 months. Charizard, right, fan favorite Pokemon, probably the most fan favorite Pokemon if we're looking historically, went up 79.36%, right? Almost 4 times percentage gain there. Pretty crazy stuff, right? So keep in mind, what happens if these kinds of discrepancies continue another 6 months, 5 years into the future, 10 years into the future, right? Think about it. Second, we have Walking Wake at $61, 28.65% increase. Now, I don't even want to put a gold card here, but to be fair, I'll put a gold card here. I don't think gold cards are the best long-term value. I think this won't be always the second most expensive card in the set, but to be fair, right now it is. But even the gold card Charizard has gone up a higher percentage, 36.35%, than the Walking Wake, only 28.65%. Now, Iron Crown. Again, these are not fan favorite Pokemon. This one was actually in the lead, and in the beginning, that's how kind of confusing a set Temporal Forces is, and it doesn't have that many chase cards to the point where people were confused as to what should be the chase card. I would argue that just because this had a moon and people were thinking of Moonbreon, this was in the lead for the beginning. But now it's actually down 5.69% in the last 6 months. Whereas Ninetales, the third card from Obsidian Flames, is up 131.39%. Right? Look at those trends. What if they continue? Now, I love this card, and I've been saying, guys, Temporal Forces is saved to an extent by the Ghastly and the Arbok, because those are actually really good cards. Especially this Ghastly has a Gengar in it, has Haunters and amazing artwork. I love this one. 117.11% increase. Arguably the best card in Temporal Forces. And then compare that to the Cleffa still outgained percentage-wise, 202.81%, even though I absolutely love the Ghastly. Nothing against this Ghastly. I invested in it. I invested in the Arbok. I love those two cards. And then we have Gouging Fire, 33.16% up. And we have Gloom, 248.94% up. Are you guys seeing the trends? Are you guys imagining what will happen if these trends continue? So, just to put some of this in context, if we add up the top five cards in value for Obsidian Flames, 6 months ago, it was 82.62 USD, right? Now it's 162.72 USD. For Temporal Forces, 6 months ago, it was 254.85 USD. Now it's 322.66 USD. 6 months ago, the difference between the two sets, the top five card value, was 200%. The current difference is 98%. So Obsidian Flames grew 97%. Temporal Forces grew 27%. Now, why do I think this is? I think in large part it is due to the fan favorite Pokemon in Obsidian Flames compared to a lot of these Raging Bolt, Roaring, whatever, Iron Crown. These Pokemon that people can't relate to, and they won't be able to relate to, especially, in my opinion, in 5 years, 10 years down the line. While the Charizard makes sense. Ninetales makes sense. Gloom, 151 Pokemon makes sense. Cleffa, Scizor. We're going to talk about Scizor. It wasn't even in this list. So, Pidgeot, the whole Pidgeot line. So, I really think that even in 6 months, you could see a discrepancy in how the value grows differently in each set. Now, imagine 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. It's easy to understand I want to chase that Charizard. How many people will be saying, I want to chase that Iron Moon? Or Crown. Iron Crown. I don't even know the name. See what I mean? Like, how many people will want to chase that in 20 years? It'll be historic. It'll be interesting from that regard, but it won't have the same power, the same sway as a Charizard, in my opinion, let alone a Dark Charizard, because it's a Dark type in that card. So, and now I put the current PSA 10 values will shock you. Some of these discrepancies have even really made themselves known in the PSA 10s to the point where the PSA 10s and Obsidian Flames are beating the Temporal Forces ones in a lot of cases. So look at this. 380 USD, 405 USD for the Charizard. 374, 344, 300 USD for the Raging Bolt. Right? That's the first example. Then we have some other examples. I took some highlights here. 300, 300, right? This is an old one. So you have in the 300s, comfortably in the 300s, Ninetales. Walking Wake, not even breaking 200, right? You have Gloom here, and I'm shocked by this sale. Like, look at this, 369 USD. I don't know what's happening there. I have a Gloom, and I got one recently for like half this price. So I don't know what's happening here. I don't know if this will continue, but either way, we're seeing some nice value held by the Gloom. But damn, that 369. And then Iron Crown 200, right? Ghastly is the one, like I said, I love it. And it makes sense that it's pretty much the most valuable. It's right up there with Raging Bolt, and I think it'll surpass the Raging Bolt in PSA 10 value. It's more consistently above it as well. So this totally makes sense to me. It's the reason I invested in the Ghastly. And even the Scizor has more value than the Iron Crown, for example. Like, look at this, 255 USD for the Scizor, and that wasn't even in the top 5 cards that we talked about. So I hope that shows you guys that there's more nuance to it than picking the current market value of a set and basing your decision on what's a better investment based purely off of that, especially when it's like less than, a few months old, or if it's less than even a year old. You got to give it time. Now, if you're looking at current set value, for example, with tag team sets, I think that could probably be a better predictor, right? And you can always use it as a tool, as a way to look at things, as an additional piece of information. But I'm just saying its current set value is not everything, especially when sets are this new, like with Scarlet and Violet era. And like I showed you, in just 6 months, the set values can change disproportionately very quickly. Extrapolate that to 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. That's what I'm talking about. That's the power of popular Pokemon versus popular cards of the moment. And that's why I told you guys that the Persian was a buy. Well, I didn't buy any of the any of the top cards in Shrouded Fable. The Persian's now number one. I told you guys that I bought the Groudon when it wasn't number one, and now it's number one, right? I didn't buy the Roaring Moon. I told you guys that the Squirtle will surpass the Terapagos, and it's been getting closer. If it hasn't surpassed it yet, I haven't checked recently, but in PSA 10 prices when I checked last, it already surpassed the Terapagos. And honestly, that's saying a lot because Terapagos is the first rainbow card. So being able to surpass that, the rainbow border cards. So to be able to surpass it, and I heard it's popular in the anime and everything, like that's saying a lot. So keep this in mind, guys. Popularity of the Pokemon in a set is just as important, if not more important, than the current set value. Don't think it's so simple. Understand that there's nuance here. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed these kinds of videos, and I'll see you in the next one.